for human consumption inside this bottle, and the plastic's made safe, you start to build standardised, regulated rules. So then you end up with this trade agreement, say, yeah, okay, put all of that together and it'll go into one thing. What we're trying to do is saying, this is where we are. We've got the same rules as the European Union today, so it should be ezy, right? That's what they're telling us in Westminster. But the problem is, we want to reserve the right to be able to change our standards and change our rules. So we're actually trying to say, well, we're starting here, but we want the right to separate, go further and further apart from each other. That's not how trade negotiations work. That's absolutely the reverse of how you do a deal with somebody, and how you work together, and how you cooperate with each other. So we said, so what are our chances? They said, well, the quickest, fastest trade deal the UK is likely to get would be with a country that's got a liberalised trade policy and a democratic, liberalish government, and that would be somewhere like Canada. The quickest, fastest trade deal you'll get will probably be with Canada, and it's not even on Liam Fox's radar. Because they've got very, very similar standards. They've just signed the CETA agreement, the Canada-European Trade Agreement, so that's all in place now. They said you could probably get one with Canada within a couple of years. They said the European Union one, probably 8 to 10 years. 8 to 10 years before we get a final trade deal.
Our nearest neighbours.
They are nearest neighbours, 16, 17 miles.
Unless you speak to Dominic Raab, he's not sure where Dover is.
He's resigned, he's not doing that.
That's all right, we've had enough of experts, remember?
No, actually no. To be fair to Michael Gove, he did a Donald Trump when he said we've had enough exports. He misspoke. What he meant to say is we've had enough exports. He didn't say it. So you've got these trade deals, 8 to 10 years, and what we've allowed ourselves in the transition period, if we get that withdrawal agreement, is 18 months to do a trade deal with the largest trade bloc on the planet.
Yeah.
We're just like not even on the same place as the rest of the world. So we explored a little bit with these guys. Well, when you say take pieces out of our economy, what are you talking about? They said, well, from what we're hearing, the first sector they'll go after is your agri-food sector. So your agriculture and your downstream processing. So that's your dairy farmers, your meat farmers, your crop farmers, your arable farmers. And the first sector they'll go after is that and the downstream. And we'll explain what you mean about downstream. And they said, well, so take a dairy farmer, yeah, he's producing milk, but he's not just producing milk and selling it, that's one thing that he does. But the milk is then creating a little mini industry making butter over here. And another little industry over here making cheese from the milk that's being produced. And another little industry over here making yogurt from the milk that's being produced. And then the yogurt guy, he's creating his own little sub-industry, making little plastic pots to put the yogurt in. And he's got another company over here that he supplies, a supplier over here that's making little silver tin foil lids that go on top of the plastic pot. Then you've got the cardboard manufacturer. Then you've got the guy that's printing all the marketing on the cardboard around the outside wrapping so that we all buy it off the shelves in the supermarket. Or our customers in France or Germany or wherever else it happens to be, they will buy that product. So we've got 3.5 million people working in the UK agri-food sector, from farming and agriculture right the way down through the processing stream. 3.5 million people work in that sector. He said, under all of our models, and bear in mind the WTO is one of the wealthiest organisations that exists on the planet, they've got some pretty advanced modelling capability. They said, under all of our models, if you get a withdrawal agreement signed, if you don't, if you get a withdrawal agreement with a transition period to 2020, or a transition period that's longer or shorter, under every single model we've run, other countries will destroy your agri-food sector in 18 months or 24 months if you're optimistic. I was wondering, how would they do that? And I thought, well, in the steel business, when I'm developing strategic market plans, I work on 5, 10 and 15-year periods. That's my plan, 15-year period. So where's my competition in Germany right now? I want to take the market from him. So what do? I flood the market, I find out what he's doing, and I want to leapfrog over him over the next 5 years so I can make a fortune in years sort of 7, 6 to 15. So we flood the market with really, really cheap product, yeah, because we can. Yeah, we take a loss on that for 2 or 3 years, put him out of business, and then I've got open opportunity to sell to them and set my prices at whatever I want to sell them at. And that's what I said other countries will do. He said, your Brexiteers in the UK, they're even helping these other countries by suggesting that what you should do in the UK is lower your import tariffs to 0. Yes. Yeah. Because then you can all have cheaper food, and you can have cheaper shoes for your children, and cheaper clothes for your kids. You know, so if you lower all your tariffs to 0, you're actually encouraging these other countries to supply the UK with cheap imported foods. They'll even take a loss for the first 18 months to 24 months, and once they've destroyed your agri-food sector, where are you going to go?
Well, Mitford said all that, didn't he?
Yeah, Patrick Minford. He was the lead of the, for those that don't know, he's the economist for Brexit. They were originally for
free trade.
yeah. They managed to find 8 economists in the world that thought Brexit was a good idea. And the lead on that was a guy called Professor Minford. I think it's from Swansea University. Cardiff University. Been around the block for a while.
He did say we do in our industry.
He said if you in his
Manufacturing,
report,
pharmaceutical, aerospace, I could kind of remember his list,
Mm.
which he admitted we hadn't, but that would force us to...
Alan, can we just let...
Sorry.
that's right. So the plan is that they will flood us with all of this for a couple of years, destroy our... What if they're only half right, though? What if they're only half? All their modelling, what if it's only 50% right? That's half of 3.5 million households that have got no income anymore. What if they're only 25% right? How many households can we manage to destroy their livelihoods and destroy their incomes? What are they then going to do? You think about that for a second. How many households in this area could manage with no more income? Because if businesses are not able to employ these people because prices have been undercut, we've been oversupplied, the market's been flooded, if businesses are not trading and not employing their staff, those staff are not paying PAYE income tax, they're not paying national insurance anymore. So HM Treasury's income's gone off. And the company is no longer making a lot of profit, therefore it's not paying so much corporation tax. So HM Treasury's fallen off a cliff. So what you've actually got on the economy level is you've got the organisation that's supporting the NHS, the benefit system, the welfare system, housing benefit. They've got less money to spend at the same time as you've got more people demanding more money from the state. That's not a pretty picture by any stretch of the imagination. So we said, okay, well, that's a really happy story about agri-foods, thanks for that. And we got into the automotive sector, which is really interesting for me. We were up in Nissan facility up in Sunderland recently. And there's just over three quarters, 77% of the cars that they manufacture up in Sunderland are left-hand drive. They're not to be sold here, they're to be sold in the EU. So assuming that we have 0% import tariffs on all the parts that we're bringing into the country, assuming that we do that, it'd be crazy to do that. We would probably set it in line with other countries, so your brake systems, your wheels, your windscreens that we import that we don't manufacture here, they will be increased in price by about 7%. Imagine if Nissan had to increase the cost of production by 7%. They don't even make 7% on the cost of the vehicles when they sell them. It make it impossible for them to apply that 7% increase in parts costs just to build those cars in the United Kingdom. Then when they sell that left-hand drive car back into the EU, assuming we leave with no deal, which is what we're doing right now, there's a 10% import tariff on that vehicle going back into the European Union after we built it at a higher cost. Now Nissan is 34% owned by Renault company, so all the parts globally for Nissan, all of their facilities come from Renault. Incidentally, Renault is part owned by the French state government. So I don't much doubt they're going to help us, especially when their Minister for Economy suggested today that Brexiteer politicians of the United Kingdom should absolutely stop lying to the British public. They're not fans of ours right now. So that's just Nissan. And you think, well, BMW have already said we're not building the new electric Mini in Oxfordshire. That's going to be built abroad. Jaguar Land Rover's brand new electric vehicle, it's not being built here, it's going to Slovakia, it's their new facility in Slovakia. They're not building here because we build things for the largest single trade bloc on the planet and for export all over the world, thanks to our EU membership. When you put all this together, the automotive sector in the UK, 700,000 people work in that sector. And if 75% of the cars that we build are left-hand drive and not to be built in the UK, why would they continue to build those vehicles here? And the answer is they're not going to. 700,000 people, say they only lost 30% of those jobs. That's not a pretty picture, on top of the agri-food sector. Then you look at other industries and manufacturing. We talked about loads and loads of different stuff. And the analogy they gave us is that what you're trying to do with the United Kingdom right now is, imagine you're driving down the Autobahn at 140, down the motorway at 100 miles an hour, your car's in 6th gear, you've got your partner, your husband, your wife sitting in the passenger seat, your kids are sitting in the back, and you're going along the fast lane, which is what we were. We were the fastest growing economy in the group of 7 largest economies on the planet before the referendum. And they said, what you're trying to do with Brexit is put the clutch in at 100 miles an hour, take the car out of 6th, stick it into 1st gear and let the clutch out. And they said the engine of the car is going to be shot to pieces along with the gearbox. It'll take a significant amount of time to rebuild it, a massive amount of money to reinvest in the new engine, the new gearbox and everything else. He said, and the engine's the economy of the UK, is in the analogy. He said, the passengers, that's you guys and me. He said, if you even survive this thing, you're going to be in shock for a long, long time. If you're not injured or in hospital for a long, long, long time. And this is the analogy from the leading international trade experts in the world. That's what they're saying, leading the European Union, leading the single market, leading the customs union is going to do to the United Kingdom. Are we doing it deliberately? It's almost like you impose sanctions on Iran or Saudi Arabia or Russia when they do something bad. We're imposing sanctions on ourselves. It's just complete insanity. No government should do that much damage to their own country. I mean, it's so bad that our government have recently appointed a new role in government, a Minister for Food Supplies. That's a Minister for Rationing, to you and me, to make sure we have adequate food across the country. You look at the government's own preparedness, what they are doing at DexEU to prepare for this no-deal Brexit. There's a lot of talk about shutting down the M26, it's a 12-mile motorway in the southeast, shutting down 2 lanes of the M20, because we've got 17 customs agents at Dover Port, 17 customs agents, who will be checking all the trucks coming into the country and making sure that what's on the piece of paper is exactly what's on the back of the truck when it comes off the ferry, and vice versa.
Do you mean Border Force officers?
Customs agents, no, I mean customs agents, not Border Force. Border Force
HMRC.
yeah.
HMRC, not actually customs agents that do the paperwork.
Correct. Well, there are some people down there where if you park your truck up, you go down to the customs office, and say, look, can you stamp that? That's what I've got on the back of the truck. And right now it's easy.
See my document.
We don't even have to do that at the moment. Well, 1 in 10 trucks or something has to do that. We have 12,000 trucks go in and out of Dover Port every single day. At the moment, none of them really need to be checked because we know that we're members of the European Union. That's friction-free trade. It goes both ways. So when we look at all our exports, I suppose it'll be easier because my customer in Mexico is not going to pay £1.25 for my widget that I made in Manchester or Oxfordshire. He's not going to pay £1.25. He can still buy that widget for £1 from one of the other countries he's got a trade deal with. He doesn't have to figure out any import paperwork. Yeah, he doesn't have to fork out the money for the customs duty up front because we're a third country nation without a trade agreement. Those import duties will have to be paid up front, either by British companies or the importer. Really, really complicated and really hard to trade on WTO terms. The last country in the world that tried to trade only on WTO terms was Mauritania. Mauritania's economy is about 2.6% of the size of the UK. Between 1 and 17% of the population of Mauritania still lived in poverty, slavery, not poverty, slavery. And half of their exports is iron ore, a natural resource that is essential for steelmaking around the world. They've actually got a product that the rest of the world need to buy. What do we make in the UK that's unique to us, that our customers have to buy from us? Not much. And if you look at the European Union, all these jam. Oh yeah, and tea, Yorkshire tea, from those tea fields in Yorkshire.
Melton Mowbray pork pies.
Melton Mowbray pork pies.
Tea comes in duty free, by the way.
Yes, but I can make Melton Mowbray tea.
Yes.
If we're outside the EU no deal, I can make a Melton Mowbray pork pie in France or Germany or Košice or Slovakia, anywhere I want, assuming that those geographical indicators are not waved through within the withdrawal agreement. You're shaking your head there.
Well, you chose a bad example because Melton Mowbray pork pies. I'll speak later, but one of the products they're designated as being only. You're only able to label a pie Melton Mowbray if you make it in Melton Mowbray. There's about 10 products that are designated. Stilton cheese is one, Melton Mowbray pies are another.
Cornish pasties.
No, not Cornish pasties actually. A certain aspect. So there are a certain number of legally designated products.
Just over 3,000.
So in your making speech in the future, don't use Melton pies as an example.
There are just over 3,000 of these geographical.
There are lots of other things. I mean, most things you're right about, but not about Melton Mowbray pies.
Through the
years, I think
we tried to get the same designation.
You might be right. I think it's a brand rather than an indicator. But anyway, we're by the way.
Is that our own agreement now, or is that part of the?
Can we just?
Let's follow up.
There's been plenty of time for questions in a moment.
So we've got all these trucks stacked up at the borders on both sides of the channel, and the Department of Health recently wrote to the Department of Health, the EU Select Committee, and said that we're going to have a bit of a problem with this, because our ingredients come into the hospitals where we make our foods for our patients, and we have balanced diets that are nutritional because all of our patients are different, and they've all got different illnesses, and they need different dietary requirements. So we cook these things in hospital canteens and hospital kitchens. If our ingredients are held up, patients will not be leaving the hospitals, but not because we can't make them better, it's because we can't feed them. This is from the Department of Health. The Secretary of State for Health was on the radio yesterday morning, the day before this week. He was asked specifically, can you guarantee people will not die because of Brexit? And he said, no, I can't. I do a lot of these talks all over the country. I was in Essex recently, a lady sitting on the front row. She asked me that same question. She said, Jason, can you guarantee me, she looked me right now, can you guarantee me I'm not going to die because of Brexit? I said, well, everyone had a bit of a chuckle. I said, well, how do you mean? And she said, I've got an illness, I take 6 different medications every single day. If I miss one of them, I'm dead in 24 hours as a result of my illness that I've got. She said, 3 of those drugs have got a 7-day potency, which means if I take it on the 8th day, I'm dead in 24 hours, by the very nature of her illness. Now the government is stockpiling, so they tell us, up to 6 weeks of medicines. How do you stockpile a drug that's got a 7-day life expectancy? How do you do that? You can't. You just can't. You can't order it ahead of time. We had a 3-hour conference call. We've just done a 3 Blokes episode on medicines, which is heartbreaking. And the lady that we had a conference call with, she works for one of the major medicine manufacturers in the United Kingdom. And she gives evidence to the Department of Exiting the EU. And when they go in to do these consultations with the government, they're given a piece of paper on the table, which is a non-disclosure agreement, saying, when you leave the meeting, you will not discuss what's happened in this meeting today. It's a non-disclosure. You're not allowed to disclose anything that we talk about today. And she'll be in the room, and there'll be AstraZeneca in there, Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, Johnson & Johnson, all the major medicine manufacturers are in the room at the same time. So they sign these things out. I said, who's asking you to sign these? Some junior civil servant? She said, no, the Secretary of State. And before the meeting starts, he then collects them all up, makes sure they're signed, passes them out the door to the civil servant who takes them away and puts them in file. I said, oh, you couldn't let me have a copy of it. Redact out your name and your details and things. I just want to read one. She said, no, there's only one copy. We're not allowed to keep it. I've never signed a contract where I've not had a copy and they've had a copy. Yeah, but this is the opaqueness that the Department for Exiting the EU are working under in our government, in the United Kingdom, in the 21st century. So she said, my daughter's really ill. She said, we were in this meeting, and the evidence that we gave is we need to stockpile 6 months of medicines in the United Kingdom. Not 6 weeks, 6 months worth we need to stockpile, because she knows what the problems are going to be. We manufacture about 48 million different packets of medicine and tablets every single year that we ship to the EU. And then we import another 37 million packets of medicine and things. What this is saying is the UK pharmaceutical companies, we don't make the medicines that we actually need in the UK. But what we do is we work with the largest trading bloc on the planet, friction-free, and we make the stuff we're good at making, they make the stuff they're good at making, and we just share it friction-free. That works, or has worked. But as soon as you put out any kind of friction on the borders, those drugs are not coming back in and out. Things like medical testing. At the moment, we can test drugs in Manchester. We produce 500,000 tablets of a particular brand. We test them in Manchester, we grind them down, we test some of it. Yeah? That 500,000 tablets are now free for sale anywhere inside the EU 28 countries. When we're outside the EU, we can test it in Manchester, but it still needs to be tested again when it goes back into the European Union. It's got to be tested in a member state when that 500,000 tablets are on EU member state soil. Because the whole batch has got to be there, and you take some out and you test it and make sure it's safe for human consumption, it's not going to kill people. And they do that even on 20, 30-year-old drugs, which are generic drugs that happen all the time. So she said, there's no point, because the pharmaceutical sectors around the world divide into 3. The United States of America, the European Union, and the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, the pharmaceutical companies don't really bother trying to market their drugs and get them registered and regulated and marketed in a specific country. So what happens is they get about 40% of the generic drugs that are sold in the world markets. And that third sector covers the biggest one is China, the second block is Africa, but that third block also includes countries like Canada and Switzerland. Now, they don't have access to the brand new drugs that are coming out, the new innovative stuff, where the research is happening. And say you've got a new type of insulin or a new cancer treatment, these sort of things. They don't have access to this new stuff. They just trade on that old generic stuff. and then they wait for these new innovative ones to become more generic, and then they get access to them. That's where we'll be post-Brexit. We lose access to 60% of the new drugs coming on the market. This is not me saying this, this is evidence that's being given to the DEX EU. And the government are hearing this, but they're not telling anybody. And that's what I find frustrating. And the media are not asking the right questions. If my dad or my mum was seriously ill, I want them to have state-of-the-art medicines. You know, I'm thinking about my dad's statins and stuff he takes for his heart condition and then his blood pressure. You know, and my mum's lost people on statins and various types of drugs just to sort of keep us sane-ish. You know? But we're being downgraded to the older style. We won't get the new stuff coming in anymore. And the stuff we do make, there's 48 million packages of tablets. Why would they make them here instead of just building new factories in the EU? They won't, because they're already building these new robotic factories in the EU. They're building a mirror image of the facility they've got in Manchester over in the EU already. And it's not just this one company that we had a 3-hour conference call with, it's all the others as well, because she talks to them all. And people are going to die because of Brexit. Not just that one lady who was sitting on the front row. The Secretary of State for Health has said this. Hospitals are saying the same thing. If you can't go, this lady, as far as got into the story, her daughter's ill, and she knows that she needs 6 months worth of medicines. So she went to her GP and said, look, I want to stockpile 6 months of medicine for my daughter. I bought a new fridge for home, I've got a new freezer specifically for the purpose. She's in the know, she knows what's going on. And her GP said, I can't do that, the NHS won't prescribe 6 months worth of medicines for you up front. So she went to a private GP, got the prescriptions, got the medicines imported from Italy, and she stockpiled 6 months. That's what she told the government we need to do for all of the patients in the country. And the government said, here, 6 weeks, because we can't afford to stockpile more than that. And we don't have the warehouse capability either. The government are talking about stockpiling food, but Minister for Rationing. This is what no-deal Brexit looks like. And I've only just scratched the surface today. I've touched on maybe half a dozen of those 750 different treaties that we currently have with the European Union. It is crazy. I did a talk earlier in the week to the entertainment sector in the UK, so the TV companies, film manufacturers, post-production companies, people who do the graphics on subtitles on the movies and stuff. And they were saying their sort of issue that they're going to have is, so you go to Munich in Germany and you film Tom Cruise leaping off the top of a building for an action movie, you know, and it's filmed over there, that clip, and then the film's post-produced in Soho right now. So that data file, that video film, goes through the internet, pops up in London in Soho, and the guys sit there and they do some work on it. They change the lighting and make Tom Cruise look taller and make him look more shaven, whatever it happens to be. The post-production happens in London. It's a £1 billion industry in London. But in that data file that comes across is personal information about the cameraman, who filmed it, yeah, who's the sound engineer, yeah, who's the guy that held the camera, who's the guy that held the microphones and stuff, who's the producer, who's the director, who were the actors in it. All this personal identification stuff, their email addresses, the contact details, telephone numbers, all of that sort of stuff is in that data file. As a third country outside the EU, under the GDPR regulations, the data protection regulations, we will not be entitled to hold personal information, identification information of EU citizens outside of the EU, because we're not an EU member state anymore. So the post-production companies in London will not be able to use that data. If I'm a British manufacturer building tables, and I want to go and do an exhibition in Frankfurt, I can take all my kit over there, I can pay my VAT on it, my import VAT, which I can claim back when I take my demonstration materials away from the exhibition afterwards, take it all over to Frankfurt, put all the import paperwork in place, go to the exhibition, collect all the business cards from potential new customers. When I get back to the UK, I can't put their information into a database in the United Kingdom because it's in breach of the general data protection rules. It's just insane. There's so many of these little things that people don't even think about. E-commerce, e-signatures. You buy something on Amazon, you expect it to deliver 24 hours now. It can't happen if it's coming from the EU anymore, because it's got to be customs cleared. Same as you get it from the States right now. Yeah? It goes to the post, Royal Mail, and then sometimes it might be an £8 screen projector for your mobile phone you've ordered online. Comes in at £8, you get a letter from the post office saying, yeah, your packages arrived from America, you owe us another £8 handling fee because it's come from abroad. Oh, another £5 worth of duty or whatever it is. I've had that. You've got to go to the delivery office and pick your parcel up. The Royal Mail are not ready for this. I haven't touched on truck driver's licenses, I haven't trucked a little, but there's a lot more to that. So there's a whole host of things, but I just want to say this is the result of a no-deal Brexit. So the last couple of years, luckily though, we've got David Davis working in the Dex EU, and he's been negotiating a brilliant trade deal for us. Oh no, he hasn't. Oh no, he hasn't. So he fluffed up, messed up, and then Theresa May said, we've got a deal at Chequers, this is what the Cabinet have agreed to, and we looked at it, yeah, brilliant. Finally we get to see something, the result of all of this work that the government have been doing, negotiating with the European Union to get us out safely and securely and doing the best for the nation. And it turns out that it was all agreed, and then the next day, Davis resigned. That's okay, because Dominic Raab came in. And Dominic Raab said, okay, I'm going to negotiate the best deal that we can get for Britain, it's going to be in the best interest of the country, and everyone's going to be great. And then he didn't. Because Theresa May said, well, you don't do that anymore. You go and do the preparedness. You prepare Britain for a no-deal Brexit, and I'll go and do the negotiations with my faceless, unelected bureaucrat, Ollie Robinson, in tow. So off they go to Brussels. Literally, in the last 4 or 5 months, she's been in charge, David Davis was in charge, Dominic Raab's in charge. If you're on the other side of that negotiating table, would you be a bit frustrated by now? I can tell you they are. They really, really are. It's just messed up. So finally, the EU has said, oh, I know you're in a bit of a pickle, Theresa. What we'll do is we'll bend the rules a little bit for the EU. And they've bent the rules. And people say the EU have been bullying us this whole time. But they told us what the rules were on day one. They didn't need to tell us because we helped write the damn thing. We even wrote Article 50. Lord Kerr, John Kerr, helped write Article 50. We know what the rules were before we even started. And yet, we've been asking them to bend them. They've bent them almost to breaking point because they know that Theresa May is in such a political predicament with being supported by the DUP, being supported by some of the Conservative Party, not supported by other members of the Conservative Party. It's just all a whole, and some of the Labour Party even going to support them at the moment. But it's a real dangerous situation politically for the UK government. And we've got enough uncertainty and enough instability. And the EU have tried to be as accommodating as possible